Hey everybody, my name is Ian. I work at the Panther Lab Makerspace, and every second Saturday of each month we do a maker showcase. This month we are featuring a friend of mine, JC Bigornia. He works at the Perot Museum of Nature and Science on the tech truck, and he's been kind enough to join us today for today's maker showcase. He is an awesome maker of all kind. So thank you very much, JC, for jumping on and helping me do the maker showcase this month.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I know you have a lot of amazing talents and a lot of great maker skills, but what is your main maker skill?
Hmm. So I would probably say I was having, a hard time kind of defining what it is that I do. So I guess I would say I'm a mixed media artist. I think material is something that's really important to me. So taking different materials and trying to combine them in different ways. So I work a lot with wood, reclaimed materials, leather, metal, that kind of thing. And since being on the tech truck, a nice thing that has just kind of sprouted up organically is trying to use 3D printing in my work now. So trying to use a 3D printer and still combining different materials in some way. And I like the idea of using the 3D printer as this tool that will make something that's really like precise and machined, and then adding in some kind of material that is like hand worked. So there's some imperfections in it and some things that will really show like the artist's hand, which is probably a long way of saying that I like to make, I make a lot of accessories, artwork, leather goods. I'm really into making masks. So that's my big thing, I think.
That's awesome. The mixture of all these different types of materials is definitely something I can kind of see that guitar behind you. It has several
Mm-hmm.
different types of materials, it looks like. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So if I pull it down, so this is a makey guitar. So you'd use it with some kind of online rhythm game like Guitar Hero or something. And if you remember our time at Dell World, we made those makey guitars with, was it a Boys and Girls Club? I think it was a Boys and Girls Club. Out of just like cardboard. So as part of Major Brain this summer, I made this out of wood and some arcade buttons and a makey in the back. So you can actually plug it into your computer and you can play a little Strummer Guitar Hero. And I have to give credit to one of our coworkers, Kenzie Shepard. She drew out these designs and then I 3D printed them, which is, a really cool thing about 3D printing. I think today I was thinking about this street art camp that I did with teens at the DMA. And I was like, oh, what if we, took their drawings and then like 3D printed them like this and then like tagged a bunch of buildings with them? That would be kind of cool. So anyway, but I digress.
That's really unique so she created a design, a drawing in a computer or a physical drawing.
Yes. So she's a digital painter. So she uses a program called Paint Tool Sci. And I asked her if she wouldn't mind doing some fun designs for this guitar. So she made like a little hand and flames. So she drew it out on using her Wacom tablet. And then I think she saved it as a JPEG. And then I took the JPEG and I put it into, I think it was Tinkercad. And then you can just extrude the design so that's three-dimensional. So
that's awesome.
Like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So it worked out really well.
That really brings a new life to drawing, because somebody who can draw and create in a digital world or even just on paper, looks like they could take that and turn it into a physical three-dimensional object.
Yeah. And the program that she uses is I think like $50 Paint Tool Sci, but I imagine that you could use it with like what is it, Sketchbook, I think, which is a free program. So any kind of drawing, maybe probably even paint. So any program that you use to make like a JPEG or PNG, and then Tinkercad is free, so you could plug it in there and then create some kind of three-dimensional drawing. Unfortunately, you can't make like, it would be cool if you could make the flames like really three-dimensional instead of just like this flat thing, but I don't think we're there yet. So maybe down the road, the technology will catch up to it.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of new technology coming out. That's really interesting and very cool. Can you talk a little bit about your education background? So how did you does your background in or I should say, when you went to school and got your degree, does that somehow relate to what you've been doing?
So I am from Ohio, and I went to school at Kenyon College, which is 2 hours south of Cleveland, which is where I'm from. I went to school and got my degree in studio art. So my specialty was in drawing and printmaking. I had no clue what I was going to do with my degree, and that was what my parents kind of feared as well. And right out of college, I started working at the Dallas Museum of Art, just kind of on a whim, and I fell into museum education, and I really loved like teaching, and it's just like really fulfilling, kind of sharing that idea that you're giving new skills to people. So as I was working there, I think it just kind of like happened organically that we were doing a lot of programs that centered around how art and science can interconnect, because there's obviously a lot of overlap between the two fields, and kind of doing a lot of informal STEM or STEAM education. So that just kind of led to the Tech Truck program, and it was just kind of this nice extension of what I'd already been doing. Which is to say, like, I had no idea where I was going to end up. I knew I just like loved making, and that's why, I followed my desire to do art, and then it just kind of like ended up where I am. So
that's really cool. It is such a. I always tell people whenever they come into the Panther Lab that art and science and technology, they really do go in hand. A lot of people don't exactly put that connection together, but there's so many different avenues that they can really meet.
Right. And I think we talk a lot about it on the Tech Truck. Like, art can provide a really nice access point for people to get into like engineering and math and technology. So it kind of is this like nice equalizer that if you don't have a lot of experience in some of these fields, like it could spark your interest and kind of want you to help you like grow that interest so that you can do different things. So
yeah, absolutely. Now you use a lot of tools not only on the Tech Truck, but I see a lot of tools behind you there. What do you think your favorite tool is?
Right now it is kind of out of necessity too. It's my 3D printers. So I have two. I have a Prusa, which is an $800-ish machine. And then I have an Ender 3, which is over there, which is, I bought it for about $200. And I'm sure you can probably guess which one is the more reliable of the two. Yeah, this one I feel like I have to work on every other day. And then this one is just like, it's just, set it and forget it. So, but I think, and I think you can attest to this, the 3D printer was something that when I started Tech Truck, I really didn't want to have anything to do with because I was like super intimidated by it. I think the cost for getting into 3D printing is not like so much of a barrier anymore because obviously, this one is super cheap and then the plastic is not that expensive at all. But I think the barrier like of having to learn like even how to take a model that you get from some online repository and then prepare it for 3D printing is a big jump. And then also like learning how to design things that you want to print yourself is like a huge jump. And especially like for me, coming from a 2D background, going to 3D was like, oh my God. So I think, you know, it's definitely something that I was intimidated by, but then kind of coming to the understanding at some point that these machines are actually, at least the ones that we use at home, are actually not that, they're actually kind of dumb. And, you know, not being intimidated by them kind of gave me the determination to persevere and kind of learn all the steps that you need to do. But I do a lot of stuff with a 3D printer for work, which is mainly what I've been doing. But like I said, I've been designing things on my own. So this is a little phone clutch. So it's got a little opening to put your phone in. So the white part's 3D printed, the back is wood, and then the front is wood with a leather little insert. And then you can, I mean, I probably may not carry my phone around like this, but maybe for, you know, someone else, they might want to carry their phone around like that.
Well, that could be like on the walkway at the Met Gala or something like that. I feel
That's
like
right.
over the top, but also something that you can just like hold out and be like, yes, that's my phone.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Sure. And I think the idea that you can 3D print with different materials is something that is really appealing. Like printing something in like wood filament or metal filament, and like I said, I make a lot of masks. So I've been thinking about how I can design masks using, you know, some kind of online tool and then 3D printing them in wood or something, or metal. I think that'd be really fun.
Actually, can you bring that mask back? That was really, that's
sure.
really awesome looking. Can you talk about how you made that? What is it made out of?
Sure. So this is, I call it an Oni mask. So an Oni is like a Japanese, like, I think they're like demon spirits. And I got into mask making quite a long time ago. And I'm going to digress into the bowels of my childhood. So I like cosplay, and I like the idea of making masks and like becoming a different person or becoming something else. And I distinctly remember when I was like, I want to say 3 or 4, the first time like dressing up as a character from my favorite TV show. I was just like something stupid, like putting on a towel as a cape and then running around, but then like feeling like totally empowered, like you're this different person or different character and not yourself, was like something that has stayed with me this whole time. So I like the idea of making masks, and the idea that you could like transform yourself into something new. So this is made entirely out of wood veneer. So I've got actually some examples. So this is just like iron-on veneer edging that you would use for like the side of a countertop or something.
Yeah.
And I cut it into strips, and I actually iron the pieces together. And generally, I admire people who have this idea and plan in their mind of how something is going to look, because that's totally not how I work. So I typically will start with some kind of general form, and then the idea kind of starts to form in my head. And a lot of what I do is just like playing around. So putting on the pieces in a certain way at the beginning, and then like, oh no, I don't like that, so let's take pieces off and then put them in different ways. So eventually I ended up with this, and I would like to do more. And I think, you know, like I was saying, making 3D printed versions would be something that I would like to do, and maybe incorporating some of the banding still, or some leather, that kind of thing would be cool too. So.
That's amazing. That is really, and I like that you're creating it just kind of out of play. I think a lot of people overlook the importance of play and experimentation, and it's really cool that something so amazing doesn't always start from a specific design, that it just kind of morphs out of that play.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's kind of like a as we're talking, you know, like all these realizations are like coming to my mind. That's just kind of like how life has kind of turned out for me as like, experimentation. And then like, like I admire people who are, from the time that they were in school, I want to be this, and they go out and do it. And then for some people, it's totally different. So for me, it's kind of like, I build meaning through making things and like experimentation. And that's just kind of how life has been for me. And I think it's how, our work with the tech truck is too. Like, we're encouraging people to, try out different things, have this place where it's okay if something doesn't go exactly the way that they want it. You can try something new and see how this avenue takes you. So it's just kind of all like melded together like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I
like that, like the thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. No, I think that's an important realization, and I think that's one of the things that maker spaces are great for is that experimentation and trying out those new tools that somebody doesn't have access to normally, or trying out a new technique that they may not have known how to do before, and experimenting, and especially getting everybody of all ages engaged with this experimentation learning and stuff like that. So I think it's very important what y'all are doing on the tech truck, and also, maker spaces in general. I
right.
think
Yeah.
it's pretty
and,
awesome.
and what you do too, what you're doing in maker spaces too, because I think, a lot of people, when they're thinking about maker spaces or art or creativity, it's like, I think sometimes they think of things as purely like something physical that they have to create, but so much more than that, because it could be, creativity can be in any form that you want, like music or writing, or maybe it's like I have some crazy way to do Excel or something. Like I couldn't do that, but I think it's still like super creative, so I think maker spaces, and I think just like how the internet has become over the last decade or so, where you can find like almost any creative outlet that you want to do to express yourself, has been like huge for people like me, because you can just go online and you can be like, oh, I feel like making this, but I have no experience, and bam, there's like some kind of tutorial with someone who's already done it, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then how can I take that idea and like make it into something new, or make it my own? I think it's really neat.
Yeah, that definitely has been a theme that I recall on the tech truck a lot, is the tinker, engineer, create, and hack. And a lot of people hear hack and they get concerned because they're thinking hacking credit cards or hacking bank accounts, but
Right.
but that's not really what the hacking stands for on the tech truck, is it?
No, that's a good point. I view it as like making something yours, so taking something and modifying it, changing it, giving it your own meaning is how I typically think of hacks. So I think you're right, there's this kind of negative connotation about hacking in this specific like computer kind of sense, but I think hack in our terminology can apply to just a wide array of things, and just kind of like taking something and making it your own.
Absolutely, just like that guitar, you're kind of hacking those tools and creating them in a new way. So I think that's really awesome. Now I see a car kind of over off to your, I think that's your right side over there. Can you? I'm curious about it. Can you talk a little more about it?
Sure. So this is I will back up. So there's an activity that we do for Tech Truck called Crash Test Cars. It's very similar to Egg Drop that people probably have done in school. Maybe people over a certain age, where you build a little vessel for the egg, you drop it from top of the building, see if you can keep the egg from breaking. So what we did on Tech Truck we decided to put it in the car form to make it a little more like relatable to everyday life. And we talk about like what the physics are involved in a traffic collision, and how vehicles are designed for safety. And we were using CO2 cartridges to propel these cars, and people would design crumple zones for the front of the car. And then we put a little egg in there, and then we'd shoot it off and it would collide with a brick or some other hard object, and it would see if their bumper design would keep the egg from breaking. So as you know, COVID has kind of put everything in kind of this new weird space. So to kind of cut down on costs, because CO2 cartridges are not super expensive, but I was trying to think of a way that we didn't have to use so many of those. So this is going to be powered by an air compressor. So I designed this car in Fusion 360, and it's got some squeezable tires. So everything about the car I designed myself, and I actually don't have the little air vessel, but you attach a like a small soda bottle to it, and then I have a launcher over on my desk, and it is powered by an air compressor. So you put the car and connect it with the launcher, fill it up with the air compressor to like 80 or 100 psi, and then launch it off, and then see if the bumper design will keep the egg safe. So as I've had a lot of time staying at home, I've been kind of like modifying this. It's been like, I think this is the 20th version or so. But it's actually pretty cool because I hadn't used a lot of I'd used flexible filament before, but I'd never tried to design like tires or anything with it. And, it's been really fun, and I hadn't used Fusion 360 that much before either. So it's been a really fun kind of project that I've been working on. And actually, I can hold up so this is my little
Oh my God.
launcher. So here's the air compressor, and then there's a little pipe that comes out of the front. So it would be here, and then the car would go right here. And there's a little push button that you, once you inflate it to the PSI that you want, you just press the launch button, and then it'll fire off the car.
Wow.
And this is made out of wood. The button and housing was something I designed in Fusion 360 and 3D printed, and then it's got some latches and stuff that I designed too. So it's been a good challenge to test like 3D design. So it's been really fun.
That's really cool. And I think it's interesting right now. A lot of makers, we are kind of stuck at home right now. So a lot of makers are taking this time to really dive into projects and create things and modify problems that they have around their house even. So I think that's really cool. And I like that you combine a lot of your projects with multi materials. There's so many different materials. Like looking at that project, it could have been super simple just to do a simple box or something like that and use mostly wood, but you did a lot of other things, some of it out of necessity, but also there's almost an aesthetics to it. That's
yeah. And I think, and I'm sure that you're like this in your own work. You have this like, I don't know, when you're making something, you have this particular like way that you would think about doing it, and it would be like totally different from what someone else would do. Like, I'm sure that Logan would have done that like in a totally different way, and which is great. I think that's the nice thing about creativity, is that like we all see things in our own particular style, and that you can like see how it comes out. Like I can look at something that he's made and I'll be like, oh yeah, he's done that or something. I'm sure that you guys can do that with me too. So.
Yeah, it's almost like a calling card of the artist or the creator. It's the way they put it together or the way they see it is completely
like your mark.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool, man. That's a lot of amazing stuff that you've been working on, and I want to dive really quickly into the leather work. How did you get into leather work and that kind of realm? Like what inspired you to start cutting up really expensive materials?
I don't know of any like anything that made me think of that in particular. I'm trying to think back on like what was the very first thing that I would have made. It probably would have been like a bracelet or a cuff or something. I like, uh, I think, when as you travel around, you see different things. So I'm thinking that I probably saw like a bracelet or a cuff somewhere, and I was like, oh, I could do something with that. But I like making, especially like cases and stuff like that for. So here's my iPad case. It's in there.
Nice.
But yeah, I think the process of creating something in leather is like extremely rewarding, but also frustrating to no end, because I think you want to make something that is like super polished and looks like super perfect. So your stitching is like completely straight and each stitch is even, and that there are no like nicks or anything in the leather as you're like cutting it up. And for me, at least, I've kind of given up on doing things like super perfect, because it's not going. But I think that's something that you can embrace, because if you want something that is perfect, then you can buy something that has been mass produced and it's been sewn together by a machine or someone operating a machine. But to make something like this is it will appeal to someone who's like can appreciate the amount of time and effort that it would take to put in. So I think it's very therapeutic to work with it, because there's a lot of like preparation that you do with a leather, like burnishing it and like making sure that it's oiled nicely, that kind of thing. So I think there's something really nice about working with leather with your hands. And I do double needle stitching, which is like, if you ask me to demonstrate it right now, I don't think that I could particularly, but it's something that's a real durable stitch that is really fun to do. It takes forever, but it's keep it together for quite a while. So
Yeah.
I make a lot of accessories like that, and then jewelry, and like I said, maybe trying to combine it with some of the 3D printing stuff would be a way to go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring up a really good point about imperfections in work and everything. And like, yeah, you can go to the store and get something that's perfect and, mass produced and whatnot. But there's something to be said by that artistry of somebody who took the time to put their time and invest in that piece. And it may not be 100% perfect, but it definitely has, for lack of a better word, like it has the love that that person put into it.
Right. And I'm sure that, when you're quilting, kind of the same thing.
Exactly. Now, I'm curious, has anybody inspired you? Has there been any artist, or has there been anybody in your personal life that has inspired you through this maker journey?
Sure. So, I'm a big nerd. So when I was growing up, I read a lot of comic books, because I was, I still am. I'm really introverted, so I spend a lot of time by myself. So I read a lot of comic books, and my imagination was like my main, like that was my go-to. So I taught myself how to draw by trying to imitate the way that different comic book artists drew. So I'm going to throw out a few names that maybe some people will know. But John Byrne was a really big influence on like drawing people for me. And Art Adams, those were two. They're still around today, comic book artists, but they really influenced me when I was learning how to draw. And then, as I got older and I was working at the the art museum, I think an artist that really influenced me is Takashi Murakami. He just had that show in Fort Worth last year, I think. I'm not wearing his shirt. I was wearing his shirt earlier, but not today. And I think that kind of like anime kind of comic style that has been elevated to high art is really appealing to me. There's also an artist named Mark Bradford who creates these like big map-like paintings, and I love his process because what he does is he puts down like he creates this big canvas, and then he'll collage it with like signs and stuff that he's collected off the street, and then he'll put down tape lines across the collage part. So it makes kind of like a city grid, and then they'll throw down paint on top of that, and they'll peel off the tape, and it looks like some kind of city that you can't really place, like, but has a vague reference to an actual place. So places that may look like New York, but like seen from above, like a city map or something. But they're all like, and they contain like all this detritus and like things that like signage and stuff that you might find if you're walking in the street somewhere. So I think they're really evocative, and they're always really dark and kind of dirty. So they have like these layers of meaning that I think is really neat. And then as far as like making goes, I think there's a bunch of people online that I follow, like Makers Muse and Teaching Tech. I think they have really good videos that are specifically on 3D printing that have been really helpful to me. And then Adafruit is a really great site. And Lady Ada, they always have like super cool electronics projects that we kind of draw inspiration from. So
yeah, Lady Ada is she's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, how do you think of these things? They're just like, like really unique, and I was like, man, I don't know. It would be really neat to sit with her for an hour and kind of pick her brain and learn about her creative process.
Absolutely. Well, JC, I think we're going to wrap it up, but I really want to thank you so much for joining me and taking the time to talk to me, and hopefully inspiring the next generation of makers as they move forward. Do you have any advice for them?
I would just say, don't be afraid to fail, because I think for me, like making mistakes and taking chances is the way that I've learned the most. So I would say, just whatever, go after it. And I think be open to wherever things are going to take you.
I think that's really good advice. Thank you so much for joining me, JC. I really do appreciate it. And thank you guys for joining us for another Maker Showcase. Remember, we do this every second Saturday of each month, so make sure to check back for next month's edition of Maker Showcase. Bye, everyone.